All right, so let's continue our journey through responsive design by talking now about media queries. We kind of briefly looked at them when we talked about adaptive and responsive design in the last video, but we're going to kind of dive a little bit deeper right now with media queries. So there's a couple of different things we need to talk about really before we start writing our own media queries. That's the max versus min width CSS properties. And also we need to talk about the difference between desktop first and mobile first design. There are two very different ways of thinking. We are going to right now start with desktop first, and I've created this little slide that I'll show you when we talk about desktop first. So desktop first or mobile first means that when we write our CSS, when we write our base CSS, that is written for either the desktop or the mobile, right? So if you write your base CSS, in the last video, we had that container that was 800 pixels wide. That's obviously a desktop first thing. You wrote that for the desktop. And then you go through and you change it. And so we'll go through how to change things in just a moment. But let's talk about desktop first. And I'm going to show you a quick example. So this would be desktop first. Or this doesn't have to be desktop first, but this is desktop first for us right now, right? So we've got some boxes over here. We've got some basic styles, right? And actually, to make desktop first, I'm going to do like 800 pixels wide, right? That's desktop first. There's no, you go there, hit that up on mobile, you get that scroll bar, right? So that's desktop first. Mobile would be, making it 100 pixels wide. This is a contrived example, but then you can see that it works really well on mobile. Or maybe you do it like 100% wide, right? And you're like, okay, yeah, on mobile, I want them to fill the whole screen. And then on desktop, I want them to be, smaller, etc. Right? So desktop first just means that we start writing our CSS for the desktop, and then we add media queries later for smaller screens. So to demonstrate that, let's look at this slide I've created real quick. So desktop first is going to, first in the yellow here, and we can see that our yellow, encompasses the entire thing. This is really important to understand when we get into media queries, that when we write our base CSS, it affects all screen sizes, okay? So our main CSS is for the desktop, okay? Then we are going to add media query breakpoints. That's what these smaller boxes are. And I'll show you in just a moment how to add them. So we'll add a breakpoint that's, and on desktop first, we use max width. So it's saying from 0 up until the max width of 800 pixels wide, I want these styles, these green styles, to take precedence. Above that, well, up to infinity, right, we can have our desktop. From 0 to 500 pixels wide, maximum width of 500 pixels wide, we'll have these purple styles. Okay, so this is desktop first, writing our main CSS and then kind of breaking it down as we go lower. So let's get into actually writing media queries now. So in this case, I'm going to write a media query. And a media query always starts out with the @ symbol and media. You're going to have space. And there's a lot of stuff we can do here right now, but just to not convolute things, I'm going to go with the simple way of doing it. Okay? So we're going to do @media. We're going to do an open and close parentheses, and then an open and close curly brackets. Right? In these parentheses, we're going to define what we want this new set of styles to be applied for. And in desktop first, remember, we're going to use max width. I'm going to say max width, and let's just say, for this, we're going to say 1,000. So you say 1,000 pixels. So from 0 until maximum width of 1,000 pixels, I want all of these styles to take precedence over these styles, right? So what we can do is we can change our base styles here based on the size of the screen. So let's just do something really like simple. Let's just go box 1. I believe it's just box 1. Background red. Let's close that out for a second. Okay, so notice a couple of things here. Notice that I wrote an entirely new selector, and I wrote all of the I wrote new styles in here. Let's just go in here and change something real quick just to show you. I'm going to put a width of 100% on here. Okay, so at 1,000, above 1,000, right? So if you see that right above my face there, you see 189 pixels by 21. So we're above 1,000. So remember, this is our desktop first site, right? This is what all of this takes precedence over. Then once we get below 1,000, so from 0 to 1,000 pixels, maximum width, we're going to get our new styles here. And notice something too. It's going to turn to red. I'm going to change the background, but I didn't touch that width, right? You don't have to change or write every single style when you use a media query. You only need to write the styles that you want to change. Okay, so you'll see in the future things like there will be maybe display flex on here and justify content. Just go center, center. And say below this, all I wanted to do was say justify content, flex start. And now look, above, it's center. Below, justify content, flex start. I didn't have to rewrite display flex. I didn't have to rewrite the align items because I only wanted to change justify content. I only wanted to change the background to red. I'm going to get rid of that just so we don't confuse us anymore. But just remember, you only need to write what you want to change. Okay, so let's go through this. I'm going to actually change this to blue. Let's go box 2, and we'll change that to but green. And we'll go box 3. We'll change that to red. Cool. And I want to get rid of that 100% too, because that's obnoxious. Okay, so now you'll see above 1,000, remember this is our base CSS, right? This is just, there's no media query wrapped around it. We just wrote our selectors and we wrote the styles we wanted. Then we took our media, we said at the maximum screen width of 1,000, I want you to apply these styles as well, right? So let's look back at that. Our main CSS is still part of that, right? But we're getting into this green stuff here, and we want to add styles to this. All right, so that's what the media is there. Okay, and we can do this as many times as we want with as many breakpoints as we want. Usually, you'll have standard is 3. You'll have a desktop, a tablet, and a phone size. But some websites will have a ton of different breakpoints just for little different tweaks here and there. But let's go standard tablet size is 768. And let's say at 768, we wanted, I'm just going to copy paste this because there's no point in rewriting the whole thing over and over and over again. At 768, we're going to change our color here to teal. Change our color here to gold. And let's get with the pink in there. So now look, we're above 1,000 right now. So we're at our standard desktop view. We'll get below 1,000 and we see the colors change. Okay, now let's get below 768. And now they change again. Pretty cool stuff. Now let's do one more just for the heck of it. I'm going to copy paste this whole thing because I've already written it a couple of times. And now I'm going to say max width of 400 pixels. And let's go in and go purp, black, and gray. Cool. So let's start it off. We're at our desktop view. We're going to drop below 1,000 pixels. We'll get some different colors. We'll drop below 1,000 pixels or 768, get some different colors. And then once we get below 400, we'll then get different colors as well. Now, one thing to keep in mind is we can change any CSS style. We can move things around. We can make things disappear, right? You might have been wondering this whole time, like, what's the point of having display of none? I'll show you. Actually, we'll do it on box 2. So say maybe at the tablet view, we don't want to show box 2, right? It's like maybe not that necessary, but maybe then at, you know, the mobile view, we bring it back. So let's look at box 2. Box 2, gone for tablet. Oh, it'll actually take precedence. So yeah. So now that is part of it. So it'll stay gone for 500. And if we want to bring it back for below 500, we then need to bring it back, right? So one thing to keep in mind when we write this is that this is our styles, right? Let's just say this yellow box here is our main content style. All of these styles are applied to every single level, right? 0 to infinity, main CSS content styles are applied to. 0 to 800, these green CSS styles are applied to all from 0 to 800, right? Above 800, this doesn't exist anymore. 0 to 500, this exists, right? So then when we say display none at 768, it's also going to be gone at 400, okay? And the same is like, you know, maybe we don't change that third box color at 400. Do you think it's going to go back to the default CSS of Cadet Blue, or do you think it's going to stay at pink? Let's check it out. Stayed at pink because those styles still applied to it. So one thing to keep in mind is that with media queries, the order matters. So if you're going to use max width, you have to go in descending order from largest to smallest. And cascade matters huge on this, okay? So go around, play around with this stuff. This isn't easy to get, especially since, you know, it's kind of counterintuitive. You're like, max width, 400, shouldn't that be above 400? You really have to think about it as the maximum size of the screen can be to have these styles applied to it, right? And it gets a little more confusing in our next video with mobile first when we use min width, because then it's even like a weirder thing going on. But yeah, just remember that max width means the maximum size of the screen. If the maximum size of the screen can be 400 to have these styles applied, then 401, they will not be applied, right? That's how you have to think of it. But go play around with it, start to get the hang of it, and I'll see you in the next video.